Hey, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm here with Sheridan Bradshaw. I need to kind of explain how we know each other, first of all, because it's kind of hilarious and awesome. So for those of you listening that are our age and did the AOL Instant Messenger chat room thing, I think we started talking in a chat room about, I don't know if it was like Yellow Card or Newfound Glory or something like that.
It was definitely Newfound Glory for sure.
Okay. And so we're talking probably 2002, 3, 4 or something like that. And we've just stayed in contact this whole time. So kind of
Yeah,
random, but also pretty awesome.
it is. It's super cool.
All right. So Sheridan has an art background here and does a lot of cool work and kind of wanted to get together and talk about that a little bit. So, when and why did you become, or excuse me, when and why did art become something you started devoting more time to? Like, for example, having things in galleries and selling your stuff and being part of shows. When did it kind of become a little bit more than just a hobby?
I've always painted, and my mom was an art history teacher, so that was always something I did, but I never really like dove into it real seriously until after I had my kids. And I think part of what made that happen was I had twins, and my husband traveled all the time, and I got to where I was just overwhelmed, and I didn't really have anything that was just mine. And I always had horses, but that's also work. So one year for Christmas, Manny, my husband, got me a bunch of art supplies and was like, "You should do this again." And then my mom pushed me to do my first show, and then it just kind of escalated from there. But I think it became a way for me to like separate me as my own person versus me as a mom. And I'm really grateful for it. It's been awesome to have in my life for sure.
Cool. To quote your bio on the Big Rain Gallery webpage, it says Sheridan's work has always represented a contrast between right and left brain, which is very much a personal struggle. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Sure. I think for me, I've always felt like I don't really fit in either category. I used to want to be a doctor, and I've always been considered myself very like left-brained, but I'm also very creative. But compared to most creatives, I am way more analytical, way more left-brained, way more OCD about my space and how I keep things. So I think for a long time, like my art, people will walk in my space and be like, "Who is the person who's drawing these out and painting these diamonds?" And it's like me. I look like a sociopath. But it's like it's a good way for me to have, I don't know, it appeals to both sides of me as who I am as a person, and I hope that it appeals to people too. So some people walk in and they're fascinated with the color theory and the geometry, and other people just think it's pretty. So I think the diamonds became a way for me to like express both of those things and appeal to both parts of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. You talked a little bit, and maybe this is related. You said you wanted to become a doctor at one point. So
Yeah.
often your work includes anatomical parts, like there's human hearts and things like that. So where does that inspiration come from to the point where you'd want to put it in art form?
Right. I started doing a lot of anatomy in my art when I was still in school. I was taking anatomy and physiology and an art course at the same time. And I started using a lot of whatever we were studying in my anatomy class in my art projects. And I love Netter, who is an illustrator for medical books and journals. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think that's definitely how it started though, was studying all of those structures and systems, and then taking what I was learning in my anatomy class and applying it into my art class. And it kind of just never stopped. I just kept doing it. So
Well, it's definitely
yeah.
unique, but it's kind of nice because you have this juxtaposition of like these really pretty things, like with also human parts, but it's not like it's displayed in a grotesque way or anything like that. It's
Right.
it's pretty neat to look at, actually.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So when you sit down and create art, what is that process like for you? Is it a certain thing where it's very purposeful, like, okay, it's 9 to 10 o'clock, I'm gonna do this and this is what I'm gonna get done. Is it that regimented, or do you more like just kind of sit down when it works and see what comes out? Talk me through kind of your creative process.
It really depends on what I'm working on. I would say most of the time it's when I, especially with the gemstones. it's, you know, a lot of people will sketch and draw and it'll just happen and they can come up with these ideas. That's never really been how my brain works. Like that's where I lack that right brain part. I'm somebody who's always like needed a reference or had an idea. It's not something I've been able to just pull out of my imagination. And I'm super envious of people who can do that. So I think when I start, it's one of those things where I have to like sit down and say, I'm going to start another diamond. I'm going to do it. And I have to kind of make myself start the sketch. So usually when I go to the studio, I'll have, you know, if I have something in progress, that's an easy night. You know, I know exactly what I'm going to do. But if I don't, it's like this talking myself into starting the super tedious, time consuming task of sketching out another diamond. And then once I get going, I'm good. But as far as how the time I allow or the regimen, I really only go down to the studio once or twice a week now. So those nights when I go, it's like I have to just get there and make myself start doing something and then it kind of flows from there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, in addition to this being obviously a healthy creative outlet for yourself, and you kind of talked a little bit about starting to do it, when you had your kids and your husband was away for work, right? What is it you're trying to accomplish as a result of doing this artwork, or is it just that? Is it just a creative means for you, or is there any larger purpose to it?
I think there's two parts of me that kind of to answer that question. I think the realist in me is like this is something that I would like to be successful enough that it sustains itself. It probably isn't going to pay my bills or make me a whole lot of money, but it's something that keeps me happy and I'm passionate about it. And I there's so much that goes along with it. I studio at a really amazing place. It's called Hardy and Nance, and it's there's like 40 of us in the building, so it creates a situation where I not only have that outlet where I spend my time without my kids and I get to kind of do things for myself, but I also have a really awesome community of people and a lot of friendships, and that part has been wonderful. I think the idealist in me is like I would love for this to sustain itself and maybe pay for more than that. Maybe it could be a decent, you know, source of income, but for now sustaining itself and keeping me sane. That's kind of, I think, the long-term goal. But I would love to, you know, I had a few like goals that I wanted to get done and I've done a lot of them. I've shown my work in a lot of really cool places. And I have representation at a gallery. I mean, those were some really big things I wanted to do and I've done them. As of right now, I need to kind of, I think, come up with some new goals. I'm just enjoying it though.
Awesome. How does your culture and where you live inspire your work? You're located in Texas, right?
Yes, I am. Um, the Houston art scene is actually really cool, and it's a lot bigger than people realize. So I've being in that artist community that I'm in, I don't know, I'm sure there's definitely some artists locally that have inspired me that I really like. And I think what's really neat about my art too is although I'm in Texas and I'm in Houston, I have work in Pahuska, Oklahoma, and up at our casino in Quapaw. And I've shown work at an art space in Illinois. So I've had some work in Colorado. Um, so it's been really neat to kind of take, especially like my connection to our tribes in Oklahoma, and they've been super supportive of me. Um, so I would say my family culture, my history has definitely inspired a lot of the work that I've done the last few years. But Houston itself, I don't know. There's art everywhere, and there's a lot of really cool work to see. So I would be lying if I said I haven't been influenced by a lot of that. Um, there's definitely a handful of artists that I really enjoy watching locally for sure. And it's always busy and there's always something going on. So it's fun to go out and kind of get inspired, you know.
Sure. What are some interesting connections you made with people doing this that you may not have met otherwise?
Okay, let's see. I am actually really I love that I have my work at Big Ring Gallery, and that's definitely um, a connection I probably would not have made, obviously, without that. Maybe in another way, but it's let me meet some really cool Native artists, Addie Roanhorse, and then connections to Marvel. And being able to watch how they've worked with Killers of the Flower Moon, like Marvel bought some of my work for Echo, which is really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
congratulations.
Thank you. And I don't know if it'll actually be in the show or if it'll be on set somewhere, but either way, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And and same with I was in Pioneer Woman magazine because of Big Rain Gallery, and I actually signed a release today because they filmed a show for the Cooking Network at the gallery. So my work will be in the background of that. So there's been some pretty cool connections and experiences that I definitely would never have made
Yeah, it
had
sure
I
sounds like
not.
it.
Yeah, so it's been really neat. So I'd say those are the big ones for sure.
Okay. You sort of touched on this already, but what are some artists that inspire you?
Oh, let's see. Locally, I really like Fariba Abedin. She is, I walked in her studio and I like got emotional because I was like, oh my gosh, her work is, I love color theory. I love color theory and I love math. And I walk in and hers is super colorful, very geometric. And I looked at her and I think she could tell I was having a moment. I was like, your work, it's like the inside of my brain in here. Like it just made me so happy. But I love her work. I love her use of color. And I have some really awesome people in the building at Hardy and Nance that I've learned from. Stassi Smith, Kelly Devine, Claire Richards are some really, really awesome artists that I get to see and interact with all the time. At Big Rain, Addie Roanhorse is awesome, and her brother Dante. They make some really cool stuff. Um, so yeah, those are probably some of the current still alive artists that I really like. Stephen Paul Judd is awesome. And they're people I've had an opportunity to work with, learn from, interact with, which is awesome. So when I would say, the big name artists are no longer around, I love Piet Mondrian. And people are always surprised when I say that. But I don't know. I like the clean lines of his work and I don't know. I've always liked it. But yeah, but those are some of the big ones for sure.
Got it. Well, it would be a shame if we didn't talk about music at least a little bit. So, what albums
Right,
are you
right.
listening to right now?
I have been super into crosses, which is
Oh,
Chino Moreno.
Chino, yes.
Yeah,
Gotta love Deftones and show. I've talked about him on multiple shows already in Deftones.
I love
Loved
him.
it.
And so I saw
Yes.
them in February and it was amazing. One of the better shows I've been to. So I've been super into crosses. And I love the Deftones still. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
been listening to a lot of that in Foxing. I saw them recently as well. I'm going to see Say Anything at the end of the month.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Last one. This went by fast. What advice can you give to a young person who enjoys creating art and is looking to potentially make a career out of this passion, or maybe they're a person that, doesn't fit the traditional 9 to 5 mold
Yeah.
and they wanna do something more with their talent. What advice could you offer?
I would say for me, I think the most helpful thing was just to keep doing it in some capacity, even if, we all have to have our real jobs that pay the bills. And the dream is always to be able to do something you love. I'm fortunate that both of my jobs are not a 9 to 5 and they're both very different. Um, but I think that's really awesome to be able to do what you're passionate about. So I would say staying into it in whatever capacity you can. I challenged myself when I first started painting and showing to submit to open calls, even if it wasn't my medium, even if it wasn't my style, just to submit every month. And it pushed me to work outside of my comfort zone. I found a mentor. Um, I took classes. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Push yourself outside your comfort zone. Don't limit yourself because you think you can do one thing or another, or you're not good at something. I started doing a lot of abstract expression, very abstract. And it was a lot because I was intimidated by other things. And now I do hyperrealism. So you just never know. But I think the biggest thing is challenge yourself, find people who are willing to help and give you feedback and advice because there's a lot of them out there. And don't stop doing it, even if you can't do it full time. Keep it in your life.
Some good advice. Well, hey, thanks so much for doing this. We're gonna link up to your different pages so people can view your work and maybe buy something and check out what you're up to now and in the future. So thanks so much for doing this. This has been great.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All righty.